Hi everyone, it's Karen here with tie-dye watercolor card backgrounds using baby wipes. Enjoy! This video is jam-packed with techniques and it's a little bit longer, so just sit back and enjoy. First I want to talk about baby wipes. This is, before I start any techniques, I want to show you the baby wipes that I basically collect. These are baby wipes that I use to wipe off my area when I'm doing projects. And it's just, I've kept all the nice ones. I mean, I use tons and tons of baby wipes, but I really kept the ones that were my favorite and that I thought were the nicest tie-dye kind of look. And I'm just going through them right now just to show you. I categorize them in colors and put them in bags, and then I'm just going through them to just pick my favorite ones. And it's really hard to narrow down, as you can see, so I'm just going back and forth just choosing, and those are the ones I narrowed down to, one of each color kind of thing. And I even had to narrow it down later on for the card backgrounds because I had way too many baby wipes. However, the idea for this video was to create tie-dye looking backgrounds, and I thought that baby wipes were the perfect match for this technique that I wanted to do. I took some elastics. These are rainbow loom elastics from my daughter's stash, and I basically just took some baby wipes and I looked on the internet to see how to tie-dye shirts, and I used the same techniques for baby wipes. So this is a foldable kind of technique where you fold it back and forth, and this technique is called stripes and creates stripes. This one, you fold it in the middle and then again wrap around elastics around it, and this will come out as a bullseye kind of design. Then I took another wipe and created a spiral looking kind of design, and this will actually look like a spiral tie-dye, and I just wrapped the elastics around it. This last one creates circles around, and all I'm doing is just tying different little mounds out of the wipe so I could create little mountains so they can be painted. Now it was time to paint my wipes. I took some Ecoline watercolors, which are very, very strong and deep in terms of color, as they're very high in pigment. And I started with a watercolor paintbrush and just painting each section of the wipes in a different color. So I have blues and purples and yellows, greens, reds, and I just started painting around until I was finished all the different wipes. I took tweezers and started holding it with my tweezers because two reasons. First of all, the watercolors are so highly pigmented that they were going on my fingers, and I was transferring them to the other wipes, and also to just keep my fingers as clean as possible, although I didn't really manage it at the end of the video. For this particular wrap of tie-dye, what I did is you have to paint each of the pies. It's almost like, it looks like a pie, and I just painted across both sides, and it came out really, really nice. You'll see in a few minutes. I placed all the finished colored wipes on another baby wipe just to basically have them dry a little bit, and they sat and dried for a couple of hours, and then I took them out and I took out each elastic and opened them up and came out with really, really nice tie-dye effects. I really love how these came out as the colors were so deep. Here's the bullseye one, the other one was a stripe. This next one, this is the one that is like spiral, so look how cool the spiral looks. And this last one is called circles or holes, and it came out good as well. And look at the cool baby wipe in the back and all the ones that I used to wipe everything else. So these I'll keep for another time. I was going to stop here, but I really felt like I wanted to experiment with many other different products with the baby wipes to see if they would work the same way. So I took many different types of watercolors and I applied them to the baby wipes. I went and I wrapped new baby wipes with the same techniques that I used before. And the first watercolor I tested was the Prima Watercolor Confections. And this is the tropical colors, and they're really nice, and I'm doing the same thing. I'm just basically painting the baby wipes in different colors so I would get a pattern. Then I wanted to try some metallic colors, so I took the Prima metallic watercolors and started painting in the bronze and the gold colors and maybe some purple, just so I could see how the metallics would paint the wipe. I wanted to have different effects and colors on the tie-dye patterns, so that's why I wanted to experiment with so many different types of products, because it would also, like, a lot of people might ask me what else could we use for this, and this is why I'm demonstrating so many different products. I also wanted to show how I could use cheap watercolors. I'm not sure where I got these, but I know they're not very high quality watercolors, but I still got a really nice deep color on the baby wipes, and it created a really nice tie-dye. For my next tie-dye testing, I wanted to use 3 different products that are very similar to each other. So I put them each in a cup. The first one is a Brusho color, Brusho crystals. The second one is Magicals by Lindy Stamp Gang, and the third one is Color Bursts by Ken Oliver. I added the powder to each of the cups and then sprayed them with water to create a watercolor in each of the cups. And then I used it with a paintbrush to paint each of the pies in this specific tie-dye wrap. Finally, of course, I wanted to test the Distress Oxides with the tie-dye wraps. So I took 3 different colors. I took the Wilted Violet, the Broken China, and the Fossilized Amber, and I basically used them like watercolor and painted my tie-dye wrap white. I could have gone on and on testing different products. Really, I could come up with so many more ideas of products. Color bloom sprays, or any type of spray for that matter, dilutions, and anything that is watercolor based. So the Prima Philosophy inks, chalk edgers, or Tim Holtz Distress inks, and just basically anything that reacts with water and create a watercolor effect, even if it's on a mat. This is why I made so many cards, because I couldn't stop playing and experimenting with the different products. But I really love how all the different beautiful tie-dye effects came out, and I really love the technique itself with the baby wipes, and look how pretty they did come out after all. One particular thing I want to mention is that you could use acrylic paints and other type of thicker mediums, but it's better to go with the really watery mediums like watercolors, because otherwise the wipe will become too stiff and you won't be able to use it for the backgrounds for the cards. I mean, it could happen, and maybe if one uses like something thicker, then maybe you could even run it will stiffen up the wipe and you could run it through a die cutting machine. But I really wanted to have that watery look that the tie-dye usually have when you do it on a shirt or on any type of clothing. If you want to use acrylic paints, then I would definitely use fluid acrylic paints. And another idea would be to use alcohol inks, which I just thought of it right now, but I didn't experiment with, but I think it would work the same way, and the colors would be very deep and you would get a very nice deep tie-dye colors. Now it was time to think about what I was going to do with all the baby wipe backgrounds. So I took them and I went and stuck them onto some cardstock, and all I did is just stick them on with some soft matte gel, putting it both on the cardstock, gluing the baby wipe, and then putting some more gel on the actual wipe to seal it in so the color doesn't run. Here I'm sealing the first one that I picked from my baby wipe collection, and then I continued gluing the different ones that I picked from my tie-dyes, and I picked my favorite ones because there were too many and I couldn't make as many cards, so I just picked my favorite ones, my favorite colors and patterns. And you can definitely glue 2 cardstocks per baby wipe, but some of them I needed a certain pattern or a certain color to be on the background, so I didn't do 2 per baby wipe, just 1. I continued gluing all the patterns onto cardstock, although I don't show this in this video. And here's the one with this bullseye that I only used 1 cardstock for it because I really wanted that middle pattern to show. Because these backgrounds were so colorful, I really had to come up with an idea of how to embellish the cards without taking the focus out of the backgrounds. I really love this idea of using the amazing casting resin to create some really cool embellishments inside embossing folders. I got this Kaisercraft embossing folder with a dream catcher on it, and then I took both liquids from the amazing casting resin and poured them equally, 1:1 ratio, and then pour them into another cup. You mix the cup until the solution is clear, and then you immediately pour it into the embossing folder, spreading it all around. I use both sides of the embossing folder to create two different dream catchers. I've already done this technique before on another video, and I created some ATCs. This technique I learned from Kat Kerr. She's the one who came up with this technique, and it's a really cool way of creating embellishments. And I will link both videos below, both mine and hers, in my description area so you can see how I came up with this idea. To create another embellishment using feathers, I did the same technique with the amazing casting resin. Again, poured it 1:1 ratio and mixed it into the cup. These are embossing folders from Tim Holtz, Sizzix, and they are the ones that come with the die cuts because you can emboss the feathers you die cut with this kit, with this set. So I did the same thing. I stirred it until it was clear and then poured it on both sides of the embossing folder to create 4 different feathers. Once you're done pouring, you can set it aside for about 10 minutes until it cures and it starts becoming white when it gets hard. So as soon as it's hard enough to remove, you just remove it from the embossing folder, and it's so easy to remove, and you can just use scissors to cut around the design. So that's exactly what I did. I cut around the whole design of my dream catcher, and I did the same thing with the feathers. The nice thing about using both sides of the embossing folder is that you get not only 2 images, but 2 differently embossed images. You get the negative and the positive of the images. Here I am removing the feathers, and as you can see, when you remove it from the embossing folder is completely clean. And all I did is took scissors and cut around the feathers to have the design look like the one from the embossed area. Once all my backgrounds were dry from the gel, I cut around the baby wipe just to the shape of the actual cardstock. I don't show this in this video because it would be redundant to show you how I'm cutting around the cardstock, but that's what I did. I cut around with scissors, and then I took my embellishments and glued them the same way I did before with the soft matte gel medium from Prima. This gel basically glues anything, so that's why it's so good. It acts like glue, but it dries transparent and matte, so I can use it for any type of embellishment and it will not be seen when I glue it. As you can see, when I cut around this one dream catcher, one of the feathers came off, but it didn't matter because I just attached it by gluing it to the background. As I didn't have enough feathers and embellishments, what I did is I took the remaining backgrounds and I embossed them in the same embossing folder, running them through my die cutting machine. Then I wanted to create some sentiments for my cards because I wanted to keep them pretty simple to really enhance the backgrounds. So I cut out some strips out of the cardstock and I glued them to my mat using some washi tape. Then I took Hero Art sentiment stamp, Watercolor pigment ink in black, and a grid stamp block. I used my powder tool to just basically take away the static from each of the strips, and then I started stamping each of my sentiments. I wanted to use pigment ink because I wanted to stamp all the sentiments first, as I had the strips glued to my mat, so I would stamp them all and then emboss them with clear embossing. But I needed a pigment ink because it stays wet longer, and I needed it to stay wet until the end, until I was managing to emboss all of them at once. Stamping like this was the only idea I had to stamp everything aligned, although technically it didn't come out as aligned as I wanted it to be. But I don't strive for perfection in my cards, so that's okay, or in any of my work, because I just like things that are handmade, and handmade is not perfect. So I just used the grid lines because I don't have one of the stamping tools yet, and I'm still waiting for mine to arrive, the Tim Holtz one. So in the meantime, this was the idea that I had, and I also wanted to just stamp a lot of sentiments at the same time. Once I was done stamping, I removed the washi tape from each of the actual cardstock, and then I took one by one and I applied Ranger's clear embossing powder. Then I heat set each one of them, and it created a really nice shiny sentiment. I used some foam tape to stick each of the sentiments to one of my cards. I do not show this on this video because it just would be too much time for me to show you how I'm sticking them, which you know how to do. Then I took some Prima Satin Crystals gemstones and started adding them for just a little bit of added embellishment to each of the cards. I had so much fun creating these cards and experimenting with all the different types of watercolors, and especially creating these really nice tie-dye effects on baby wipes to create some beautiful backgrounds for my cards. Thank you so much for watching. If you like my video, please share it with your friends and support me. For more inspiration, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Bye!